Again, good morning, everyone. For those visitors, we do have some. This is a publicly announced meeting, so we have folks that are outside the community in here as well. I am Jack Collins. I am Secretary of the Board of Directors here at Jamaica Bay. I would like to note that this forum is not a formal board meeting, but an informational meeting that is required to be conducted under certain protocols and publication requirements. Although there have been a recent controversy about the timing of the meetings of this meeting due to the reduced community population in the summer, we are trying to get our application in for funding in the yearly August review cycle. As this is time sensitive, it cannot be held up or delayed because a portion of the community is not here. It's unfortunate, but that's the timing of the project. If we miss this cycle by delaying these required meetings and other milestones, we would delay the project by approximately 12 months. Jamaica Bay continues to operate regardless of on-site board representation, and we are supplying the Zoom in a recorded session after made available on the website, the same place as the facility plan was posted earlier last week. We continue to have significant issues with our potable water supply system in the form of line breakages and significant water loss due to leakage. This results in a cost to the community of both repair cost and excessive water usage and cost. Little, if any, investment in this infrastructure has been made over the last several years since its installation in the 70s and 80s, and the time has now come for us to rectify this short-sighted approach with an investment to solve this continuing problem. As you are aware, in 2024, we restructured Jamaica Bay to a not-for-profit corporation to allow us to seek grants and funding. If we did not make this change, we were initially ineligible. We have approached grant funding from two sources: the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Florida State Revolving Fund. There have been literally hundreds of hours dedicated to the grant research and proposals. This is the USDA piece of it, but we're not going to be talking about that today. We're talking about strictly the Florida State Revolving Fund because the requirements and the documentation are much less. We will continue to seek funding in that other avenue as we can. Please be aware that both this forum and the board meeting, which is scheduled for the 29th, are to inform the community of our progress and to move forward with grant applications. We are not, and I want to make sure everybody completely understands this, we are not committing Jamaica Bay to any financial obligations, loans, or assessments at this time. Only after any grant offer, if then, would we decide to accept the grant after evaluating all options and conditions before we proceed. I would like to introduce Daniel Magro from Atlas Engineering, from whom we have contracted to perform initial engineering work and prepare this drinking water facilities plan that has been published. We will be discussing this in this moment today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Magro with Atlas Engineering. And yes, I was approached by the board when this project was identified. You know, the pipes have reached their life cycle, they're failing, maintenance is a problem. And so basically we're looking at ways to fund the replacement of the entire water distribution system. And so I was approached by the board to help with that, and we've looked at some options. And so today we're here to discuss the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. They have a state revolving fund program. It's called SRF. And what they do is they award loans to communities and non-for-profits to help fund these projects. In some cases, depending on the community, they award what they call principal forgiveness from that loan. And so that's we're definitely hoping that that we're able to get as much principal forgiveness as possible. It could vary anywhere from 0 to as high as maybe 90%, depending on on the type of project that it is, and it's also a competitive process. There are applications coming in from all over the state, and funding is not always guaranteed. There are limited funds, and of course everyone wants to chase those principal forgiveness dollars, but we definitely, I believe, have a good application, and we're hoping to maximize that. The first step in this funding process is to develop the facilities plan, which is a report you were given access to. Basically what that does is it looks at the need for the project, describes the community, describes the needs, what's happening with the water pipes, looks at different alternatives on how to solve the problems, and then once a alternative is selected, that becomes the proposed project. There's a cost estimate associated with that proposed project, and then there's an environmental review as well for the community, which in this case, everything is fully developed, so there are no environmental issues. But basically, this is the first step in the application process, and this is the first meeting of 2 meetings where the public or the community is given an opportunity to have an opinion about the project, bring up concerns, positive, negative, whatever it might be, and we can discuss them and hopefully answer your questions. This is just a public forum, we're just talking today. The next meeting will also have another opportunity for the community to have more opinions and ask more questions, followed by a board meeting, resolution, and maybe an adoption of the facilities plan and the business plan, which is a business plan is just an attachment of the facilities plan. It basically has the accounting type data of the community, showing how you're going to repay the loan to the SRF. So at that meeting, once the board approves the resolution to adopt the facilities plan and the business plan, then we can formally compete for funding at the public funding hearing up in Tallahassee, which happens in August. That's where all the projects are ranked and funding is awarded. If you're successful in obtaining the loan with or without principal forgiveness, again, there's more opportunities to see what happened, what funding you were awarded, and then take it to the next step if you choose to do so. So, just to describe the project, we're looking at replacement of the whole entire distribution system, all the pipes in the community. The needs, as you know, it's not just the pipes are aging and breaking, and sometimes they're underneath structures which are difficult to repair if they should break. Valves don't work for the most part, but you can isolate sections of the community if there's a water main break. There's also suspected interconnections between the potable system and the irrigation system, which is a public health concern. Those kind of things elevate your ranking, your score essentially, which goes into the ranking of the project. So we'll definitely, that was recently discovered, we'll definitely add that into the facilities plan as well to make it, a better project, if you will. And we're replacing all the hydrants, all piping. So basically, the project cost estimate is about $13 million. There's about 20% contingency there. It's an estimate at this point based on recent bids and projects throughout the state of Florida. Doesn't mean that that's what the project's gonna cost. It just means that that's what we're planning to apply for the funding. At the end, the project is gonna cost whatever the lowest bid from a contractor is. We just hope to have enough funding to cover that lowest bid. So basically, we're looking at a $13 million project, all included, design, permitting, construction, technical services during construction, all that. Say worst case scenario, if you get 0 principal forgiveness and you choose to go forward with the project, that loan would have, by the way, a low interest, maybe 1.5 or somewhere in that range, depending on what it is in that particular moment. But it's definitely more competitive than any commercial terms you might get from a loan, from a bank. So worst case, you get 0% principal forgiveness. That would translate approximately to about $100 a month, additional on top of what you're paying already, just to repay the loan over the next 20 years. So there's 2 loans. There's a design loan which is only a 10-year loan, and then there's a 20-year loan for the construction portion. So you'll have two loans concurrent during the first 10 years, and then for another 10, just the construction. Best case, if you get 90% principal forgiveness, basically that would drop to like $17 a month. So as you can see, there's a huge range in impact to the finances of the community. We're hoping to maximize principal forgiveness, to lower that impact, and fund your project with grant funding, if you will. Basically, we won't know until the projects are ranked and you compete at the August funding hearing. So again, just to summarize the purpose of everything we're doing, if you choose to, if you decide that yes, the project needs to happen, we need to replace the water mains, then you can choose to, you can do a one-time assessment for the whole community. That would be, I don't know, maybe $18,000 to $20,000 one-time assessment and pay for the project that way. You could go to a commercial bank and get a loan to fund the project. The terms would not be good. As good as the state program. Or if you're able to either get a loan, and even better, a loan with principal forgiveness with the state revolving fund, that would be the best case scenario in my view. So those would be your options essentially. So with that said, if you have any questions, I'm sure you do, I'll be happy to answer them.
You're saying that
Excuse me.
It's in your microphone.
Excuse me. If you can come up to the podium and ask your question, because this has been recorded, it's being passed out to everybody, so we want everybody to have a chance to have their.
Good morning. So the worst case scenario is going to be around $16, and the best would be around 13 or so. But that could be lower if the project doesn't cost that much. And this loan would be taken on, what, in a year or 2 years? Because the project won't start, if we do get the funding, until 2026 and run to 2027, right? So we don't really know what the funding cost will be until we get the bids in. We'll go with the best one that we think is available at the time. Just a question. It's nice to have the outside public here, but the public invited because we're going to be getting public money? Is that it? That's the reason?
Yeah, if I can answer your
Oh,
question.
that's it.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Good question. So I'll tackle the first one. So that is correct. These are just numbers based on the total project cost estimate that is here right now. It could be less. If it's less, the actual amount of the loan would be less, and therefore your repayment would be lower as well. So again, these are just ballpark numbers to give you an idea, more or less, of what the project would cost. Ultimately, you won't know exactly what that number is until you get the bids, and how much principal forgiveness you're gonna get. So yes, if you go through the whole process and then you get bids, and this project turns out to be, I'm just making up a number, $20 million. You're like, wow, we can't do this. You can stop right there. You haven't engaged the contractor. Of course, at that point, you would have incurred the engineering fees, which is the first part, the design, which is the first part of it will be the design loan. But then you can choose to stop, you can choose to rebid it at a later time, you can choose to do various of things, but you're not committed to the lump amount of the contract until you essentially hire the contractor. And the timing of that is after you finish the project, then the way it works is you pay the contractor, and then you submit a reimbursement request from the SRF, and they'll send you a payment back for what you paid. So you essentially get it reimbursed throughout the project. At the end of the project, the SRF essentially, you have a loan with them for what they reimbursed you for, and then you start repayment 6 months after the project is complete. Okay, and that's true for both the design loan, which happens early in the process, and then the construction loan, which happens later on, right before construction. Yep. And then there's your second question.
Why is the public?
Why don't we not?
Oh, the public, yes, the public. Yeah, I mean, this is a, a state-funded program, so they want all the meetings and everything to be open to the public. This is, I know this project only affects this community, but per the statute, it must be a public meeting, and there's no definition as to where the boundary is, so we have to advertise it on the paper and invite the public to attend, whether it's you or somebody, in the surrounding community. Yes?
I don't know if it's a dumb question or a smart question. Right now, we pay an HOA of $250.
You gotta go up there.
Come up to the microphone.
I'll repeat it,
Okay, right now we pay an HOA of $250 a month. We're talking about an assessment in the total of 106, which is a combination of the design SRFP and the construction SRFP. Now, is this an assessment that goes on each individual property, meaning that if a month after this loan is approved, I go to sell my property, I owe $25,500 and something dollars?
Okay, the question is, you already pay $250 a month,
Correct.
and if this is on top of that, the answer is yes. Maybe that question is more for the board to answer, as far as who owns that. Like, if you sell your property, then what happens to that? I don't know the answer to that. I would imagine that it's an assessment that will be continuing for the rest of the 20-year cycle to whoever owns that property. And yes, every property will be assessed the same amount.
So it's an increase in your HOA fee, not an actual assessment of it?
Yes, it is an increase in the HOA fee.
Actually, we prefer not to assess everybody thousands and thousands of dollars, and I think I could probably have everybody stand up and agree with that comment. The point is, it would increase your HOA fee by that $106. If you sell your property, you're off the hook for it. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Regarding the physical project, will the new system go in side by side with the old system, or does the old system come out as the new one is going in?
So the new system will be installed first, in some cases close to the existing pipes, in some cases not so close, depending on where the pipes are. But essentially, you construct a new system first, you test it, you pressure test it, you back-T test it, you disinfect it, and then you, one by one, you switch the homes from the old system to the new one. So you keep two systems alive during that transition process, so you don't lose service during the project. Depending on where the existing lines are, the new ones will be close or farther away from where they are, but that's something that will be addressed during the design phase.
If we are unsuccessful with the competition in August, are we qualified to repeat and compete in the following August?
Yep, good question too. So the SRF has 4 funding hearings throughout the year, every quarter, every 3 months. And so the ones in August and February are the ones that they award principal forgiveness. Their budget begins in the August meeting, so it's the meeting that has the most funding available, so that's why we're targeting that meeting. If you're not successful, you can recompete at any other future meeting until you get the funding. So, but again, we have to wait till February for principal forgiveness dollars, and even then, the budget is lower than in August, so. To answer your question. Yes?
Does the pipes affect the street?
When you take up the new pipes, are some of the pipes under the street, do they affect the catch basins and so forth? And if so, is that included in that $13 million estimate?
Yes, so the water mains, the new water mains will be designed to avoid underground pipes such as stormwater pipes. Those are big, you don't want to move them around. So yes, we will avoid those pipes for sure. If they're underneath the asphalt, then that road would get re-asphalted or repaved essentially, because it will be destroyed during construction. Some of the pipes will be along the roads, especially the bigger pipes. And then the smaller diameter pipes will be behind, the home, behind the alleys on the green area where the existing pipes are. That's where all the service connections are, so that's what makes sense. So it'll be a combination of locations. But yeah, the new pipes will have to avoid the stormwater pipes and the catch basins.
So your report highlights the fact that you considered two other options, the do nothing option and the section replacement option. On the analysis of those two options, it appears as if, at least the way the report is written, that you rejected those options primarily because you're taking the approach that it kicks the can down the road. I guess what I'd like to know is how rigorous was the assessment of those options? For example, do we know how many breaks are happening on an annual basis? Are they increasing? Are they in clustered areas that would be more conducive to replacing a sectioned area? None of that's covered in the report. Can you comment on those sorts of things? And how much detail was put into those alternative solutions?
Yes, good question. So the existing system to fully evaluate, well, I'll take a step back. So one of the alternatives is to do nothing. The second alternative is to just make spot repairs, to areas that are known to have more problems or pipes that are known to being worse shaped than others. And then the third option is a complete replacement. So the reason why the second option was not considered is because the evaluation of those pipes is very difficult. Those pipes are buried. You have to essentially do a lot of digging to find out the condition of the pipes. Sometimes they're underneath homes, underneath structures. It's cluttered with all the utilities, so access to the pipes is difficult. That's one thing. Second thing, you wouldn't really solve the problem because all the pipes were mostly constructed around the same time. So they are, you have a record of all the water main breaks, they are significant and it's not gonna get any better. It's gonna keep on happening. Eventually, they're gonna have to be replaced. Whether you wanna do it now or you wanna do it 10 years from now, then that's fine too. It's just during those 10 years or longer, you're gonna have more water main breaks. So to answer your question, not much more than just the concept of the pipes having leaks and breaks and the trouble that brings, and knowing that the solution eventually will be to replace it is what really disqualifies that option.
Can I follow up?
Yeah, of course.
So there's a number of things I'd like to follow up on, but you mentioned leaks. You say it's difficult to get at the systems. When I look at the data in the report, there's no increasing trend in water usage in the community. So how can we say that there are leaks if there's not an increasing trend in water loss or water usage? You also say it's difficult to assess the areas. What I'm saying is, if you've got a cluster of breaks that happens in one area, that would be a candidate to replace a section as opposed to replacing an entire community, right? And so that you say we have the data. What is the data that says how frequent are the breaks? Where are they located? Are they in certain lines? Are they in the small lines, the large lines? Do we know the causes? Are they caused by just pressure? Or are they caused by some outside force? Like we often get reminders, don't drive on the grass. Are they actually caused by things like that? So I'm looking for that kind of analysis, because $13 million is a lot of money for anybody, even if you break it down into a monthly assessment. So it seems like there should be some rigor put into these alternatives, or at least some data behind it that explains why you didn't choose that solution. Because honestly, the report comes across as you gave cursory look to options 1 and 2, but really focus on option 3. And option 3 is very expensive. So I'd really like a bit more rigor and understanding on why was option 1 and option 2 not selected. So that's why I'm asking that question.
Yeah, so that level of study was not performed for this. If it's something that you all like to do, you know, certainly something that can be done. You know, statistical analysis or, you know, digging the pipes and just getting your eyes on it just to see what's happening.
How about just the data of the breaks that we know of?
We have a list, right? You have a list of all that, I mean, that can be provided. If you want to, we can include it in the report.
I mean, when I look back at my email records, I only see 9 notices in the last couple of years for breaks. And if you even assume $30,000 of breaks to repair, it doesn't come anywhere close to $13 million.
There's a significant more than that.
Okay.
One other point I'd like to make, and I think it was in one of the charts here. If you look at the water usage over the course of the year, it doesn't vary that much by summer to winter. When you think during the summer when folks are gone, usage should go down. That's indicative of some sort of underground leaking system. Not a positive identification of it, but we think that's an indication of that happening very significantly.
What does it cost a year, sure?
But Jack, I don't wanna get into arguments about that, but if you look at the data, yes, you would expect it to go down when the community reduces in its population, but you would also expect it to come back when the community comes back, and it's doing neither. So that's why I say you're presuming there are leaks, but you haven't actually verified that there are leaks. And I'm not saying that there aren't, but here's another question on that approach. What community your own assessment is planning for 70-year life for this new water system? Is that typical? And what other communities have done wholesale replacements? And what was the age of their system when they did it? And are there systems that are older than 50 years that haven't had wholesale replacements, and how are they managing it? I'm just looking for some of those comparative analyses because, again, a whole system replacement is substantial for a community of this size.
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, if the analysis is based on dollars, you know, we're just gonna repair every leak that happens, you will always be less than replacing the project. There's no question about it. If the analysis is, our pipes are breaking, sometimes they could break underneath the home. You know, depending on the pipe that breaks, it could wash out a big area. You're basically understanding that your pipes are 40+ years old, and these older pipes, you know, tend to break more than the new pipes. So, due to the number of breaks, and type of materials and everything, it's not uncommon for communities like this to replace a water system. You know, Colonial Estates, just not too far from here, did the same kind of project, funded with the SRF. They go principal forgiveness, brand new pipes. So, yes, yes, Colonial Estates, not too far from here, did exactly the same project. They replaced all the water mains. You know, similar situation. Yes, you could just repair every break for the next 20 years, and that's fine. You'll spend less money. But you know, there's the risk of that. There's the health hazard of having interconnections that nobody knows where they are between the irrigation system and the water main. You know, it's a big problem.
That's new, that's not covered.
That's not, I just found out last week. But I'm gonna put that in there because that makes the project even more important. So if your decision hire a contractor / engineering team, you hire them based on qualifications, not on price. And then they give you, then you can pre-select 2 or 3, and then they give you a hard number to design and construct it all at once. So that way you're all in, you know exactly how much a project is gonna cost prior to incurring the cost to design the project and then getting bids. Because what the other gentleman was saying is true. If you design it and then the project comes out to be $20 million and you choose not to do so, you did incur those engineering fees. I understand that. Now that's not lost, you know, the design is good for the future as well. But yes, that is a concern, that if you do the design build delivery method, then you don't have that risk, if you will. However, normally those costs I've seen are higher overall than doing it the design build method. But that's an option too that definitely can be done.
I don't wanna go back and forth.
somebody had
I don't wanna go back and forth with that issue about
Yeah.
the estimate, but aren't we trying to get the highest estimate so we can get the most funding?
Yeah, that is correct. I mean, we are trying to get as much funding as possible.
We want the estimate to be as high as possible. We're not gonna pay that price, hopefully, until we get the estimates from the contractor. But we want this estimate to be as high as possible, to give it to the funding places, the state and stuff.
Right.
Get the loan.
Yeah.
And then, when we find out the actual cost of it, then we make a decision to make a payment, a decision if we wanna go ahead with the project. Is that what, right?
Correct.
And does that include the sewage pipes too?
No, nothing. It's only water. It's only water. And you're right. I mean, the cost estimate is what it is. If you want, again, like I said, if you want to put a lower number here in the application, we can do so.
Yeah.
We can put a higher number too, but you see, you can only, I estimated the project and, conservatively. So I've talked to contractors and they say, yeah, that price is kind of high. Whatever percentage here or there. So, okay, but it's just some extra cushion just in case you get, higher bids than you expected. At least you have the funding. And the gentleman in the black shirt had a question. Did you have a question? No?
I have a question. You're talking about a forgiveness loan. What about the grant that we've been talking about for the last 2 years? Is that going to be considered at all, or is that off the table?
That is it.
That's it. Yes, that is the grant. It's just that the state revolving fund program doesn't call it grant. They just give you a loan with principal forgiveness. So the USDA is another funding program. They do call it a grant. Their process is slightly different and a little more complicated. The max grant I've seen from them is like 40% out of the whole project, and the rest would be a loan. We're still going after that? No, right now we're only looking at the state revolving fund.
Diane Bias Bay. My question is, how much have we already spent, and is that included in that $13 million? The money that we've already spent for the previous engineering firm and now this engineering firm, or is that just money out of pocket that's not included and not recoverable? And my other question is that I know that you can run a camera through pipes to find where the leaks are. Was that a consideration to see where the leaks are? I mean, given the fact that they really think that there are leaks, multiple leaks, maybe we should address that before we get into this $13 million thing. That's one of the things that...
The camera can only be used on sewer lines. Not water lines.
Okay, all right, thank you. But my question about what we've already spent, and is that part of that recoverable money if we get it?
So what you've spent so far in repairing pipes, that would not be recoverable. The Allen Albany prior engineers, none, just us. Okay, yeah. So the only thing you've incurred so far is our efforts to prepare this report and apply for this loan. That wouldn't be recoverable because only expenses incurred after the public hearing in August are any dollars reimbursable. So yes, this is some upfront cost to be able to get to that point.
And how much is that?
It was 5,000.
Yeah, I believe that was discussed and voted on at a meeting in early March, maybe it was late February. I believe the number was done at 28,000.
I looked it up last night.
Okay.
Donnelly Kimona, Jamaica Bay East. I just wanted to mention that in our reserve study that we had updated last year, the useful life of our roads is 4 years. So this is something we've known about, something we've been considering for the last few years, that the roads are going to need to be replaced. So we thought if we rolled it into this project and could get money to pay for that, so it would not have to come out of our maintenance reserve funding, that would help.
I'm pretty sure we have leaks. But the question is, if we're gonna spend $13 million to fix 10 leaks, that's one thing. 100 leaks would be another thing, or 1,000 leaks would be another thing. Why haven't we done more work to try and quantify with real data? Underground radar can find leaks, it's very easy to do, and we could put together a database, which was mentioned before. How many leaks are we talking about? If we have 1,000, I'm saying we got to do something right away. If we only have 50, maybe not. The follow-up question is, will the funding grantees grant money on estimates and not on real data?
Yeah, grant funding and estimates, because we don't have any real data at this point. The real data will come when you have a hard bid from a contractor. So basically, you have to apply based on an estimate on how much it's going to cost.
Money is granted on estimates.
Yes, it's granted on estimates. Yes, and then if the bid's coming lower, they will decrease the amount of the loan and the funding of principal forgiveness. If your bid's coming higher, then you have to say, hey, our bid's coming higher, we're gonna recompete for the remainder at the next public hearing in Tallahassee, and then, there's ways to cover that as well. But at this point, that's the best information that's available. And then as far as the leaks, yes, there are all sorts of fancy technologies that radar and things that you can, acoustic methods, to detect leaks. They're very costly. Not always do you find them. Sometimes they're too small and you can't find them, and then those leaks eventually, with the movement of the soils and so on, develop into bigger projects or bigger leaks. So I don't know that you would really have, if you go through that effort throughout the whole community, which is a large area, a lot of pipes, a lot of thousands of feet of pipe, to inspect them. Plus, some of them are really small. So I would know that you're going to have the information that you need in your hands to say, oh, we're going to have 75 leaks versus 5 leaks versus 100. That, you might discover one, in which case you might fix it, and you discover another one and you fix it, but you haven't addressed the problem. That's why the analysis is not so much on, hey, we're going to spend, $50,000 a year repairing the lines versus replacing it in its entirety. So that kind of analysis can be done, but I don't think it's going to give you the answers that you need. And at the end of the day, it is what it is. If you choose not to do it, then you will find the leaks eventually, because they will develop into bigger leaks. So the analysis is more like, okay, our pipes are dated, they're old, they're bad materials, they're going to continue to break. We have health hazard conditions with interconnections with the irrigation system, all of the above. That to find will be very difficult. So right now, that's a public health concern. Replacing the system solves that, and any other that you may not know of. So short of digging up all the pipes, there is no real way to get a perfect assessment as to whether the pipes will last another 10, 20 years.
I'd like to have the folks that have sent in and on the chat session have questions, give them an opportunity as well, versus just the folks that are in the room. So I'll ask the question. Some of them are multi-part. One is, was the facilities plan required to be able to go after the grant money? I think the answer obviously is yes. If this plan is adopted at the 29th of May meeting, is it contingent upon the grant money that we were applying for? I don't think they quite understand the process. If we adopt this plan, or as we may modify it based on this meeting, we have the option to approve that and move forward, basically is what we're talking about. So without moving forward, there is no grant money. So I think that's pretty obvious.
Right, the May 29th meeting is just to have this discussion, and then the board would vote to
resolution.
Adopt this, yes or no.
Yeah. Okay, number 3, if,
I can explain it. I think the clarity is, on May 29th, you are not committing to 13.3.
absolutely
That's the
not.
concern.
Absolutely not. I don't know how many times we've tried to communicate that. We are going after a grant. There is no commitment, no obligation, no loans, no nothing at that point. We're going after a grant. If it comes back where they say, hey, you're not eligible, well, we fold up our tent, we go home. We're not gonna continue down that pike. Does anybody not understand that piece of it?
You just
Okay.
clarified very well.
Okay, if we do not get the money we are hoping for, is it possible that we can pivot to option 2? Obviously.
That's what we're doing right now.
The last question here was, if the assessment to shareholders is more than anticipated, would it be possible to put this matter to a shareholder vote? Yes, it could be. It probably may well be a likely answer. But the problem we have with a shareholder vote is that some of these things take huge percentages to pass. And we can't even make at an annual meeting, we can't even get to a quorum. So that's a problematic in itself.
So are you saying the board ultimately has the final decision?
Yes, it does. You've elected the board to make the decision to run this community. You may not like that, you may not like some of the decisions that we make, but you have elected this board to make those hard decisions for this community, for the betterment of everybody. This person was concerned that a large assessment will force some shareholders to sell because they cannot afford the increase with over 50 homes for sale as is now. I can't really answer that other than the fact that that's a hard fact. If that's the case, I don't know that you'll find a lot of places in this part of the country, in Palm Beach County, that are as reasonable to live as this community, even with the assessment. For $300 or $400 a month, that's a deal. Next question. I'm going through Appendix B, and there's ranking. Just a second. The question is, on Appendix B, page 13. There's a ranking system from 1 to 5. I don't see a legend for the meanings of the numbers. Is 5 good?
5 is correct, 5 is correct, and 1 is less correct, depending on the question.
Okay, just need a legend maybe, that's all.
Yeah,
I thought it was,
that's a DEP form, oh, here it is. 1 to 5, answer 1 for worst case scenario, answer 5 for best case scenario.
Okay, top of page 12 is the answer to that. Next question was, I also saw in figure 5.1A and 5.1B the proposed improvements, but there doesn't seem to be a planned map of the existing system. Do we have these?
Yeah, I was given copies of the original construction drawings that show where supposedly some of the old pipes are. You know, I assume most of that is correct. Some of it could not be correct, but we have some old drawings, not complete sets, so, but we have some drawings. And that old system is not shown. These figures in this report are very, 30,000 feet level kind of things, just big picture, just to apply for funding. The design would have all the details for where the existing pipes are, and where the new pipes are going.
Valves and everything.
Valves and everything.
Another person asked some of the questions here. I think most of them are self-explanatory, or we've covered them already. One was in the report, it talks of medium household income. The numbers that are stated in the facilities plan are representative of the Census Bureau, and it puts us in good light. We are a lower income, if you want to call it that, for the incomes, for the median household income. That helps us tremendously in trying to qualify. Interest rate that was quoted in the facilities plan is an estimate based on interest rates in today's market. Those could go up or down. Ideally, they would go down. But we're talking about a smaller rate than the standard rate that you could receive anywhere else if we couldn't get the principal forgiveness. A lot of these other questions were about construction details, such as size of pipe and sections of pipe and stuff. We don't know that detail yet, so be prepared. I think, Daniel, you've covered this already. Daniel is not necessarily our grant writer, but he's preparing a proposal to go into the state revolving fund. You can consider that sort of like a grant writer, but not technically, right? Okay. Another question, there was a $600,000 number quoted in here for adding the section of the park that does not have irrigation, which is basically from Andaga north and from Exuma east. They do not have irrigation, so when they use water for irrigation, they're using city water, which we're all paying for. The other part of that question, and that's not part of any loan, that's not covered in any grant. They will not fund an irrigation system. The timeline for the loan, that's pretty well documented in here, for the loan for the grant, that's pretty well documented in the plan, what the milestones are to get to where we need to be. Okay, here's a question for you. On the August 26th date, if we stop there and don't proceed, are we still obligated for the $1340 a month for the design loan for 10 years? In other words, if we go to the design phase.
So the August date,
Excuse me, I just got a message that they're having a really hard time hearing on Zoom. If you could just speak a little bit louder, please, into the mic.
I think it's turned up as high as I go. I know I talk in a very low voice, so I'll try to be closer to the mic.
right, so if, the August date, if you stop at that point, you haven't incurred any design or construction. But I think the question refers to if you proceed with the design and then you don't construct the project, yes, that design loan has to be repaid, and that's over the next 10 years.
I believe that's all the questions I have here. There may be some more on Zoom. I'll transcribe those.
And just to clarify, there's no option for principal forgiveness on the design only, correct?
Yes, there is. The design loan, but its maximum is 50%. The maximum.
Can you apply for that alone? If we didn't go through
Could
with
you
the
speak
project?
into the mic for Zoom, please?
Yeah, sorry. My question is, if we made the decision after the design, make sure I asked my question right. So we've received a decision on principal forgiveness in August. Then we proceed with design, and assuming we get money for principal forgiveness. If we proceed with the design, but after the design decide not to proceed with the project because it's too expensive, do we still get the principal forgiveness for the design, or do we lose all the principal forgiveness because we aren't proceeding with the project?
No, so you would have an agreement for the design loan that would already have the separate, yes. It would already have the principal forgiveness built into it. So if you don't proceed with construction, then you have to repay that loan, 50% of it, assuming you get the 50%.
But it's committed at that point.
It is committed, yes.
So similar to on that subject, I don't have the schedule in front of me, I should have brought it up, but there's an August decision date regarding the principal forgiveness. And then there's an October date where I think the next step, someone help me, is begin the design in October. You have it up here. The question is, if we don't get the principal forgiveness, is there going to be a community review of other options? There's nothing on the schedule that says there will be a community review. What is the board's plan, for example, if we didn't get principal forgiveness? Are we straight down the path of full replacement, or do we reconsider, and what's that decision point?
I think we've covered that before, but basically, again, we're going in for the grant now. We'll take those milestones as they occur. If we come in and qualify, hard decisions as we need to.
We'll keep it on forward, just as we are now.
You're on the board.
Yes,
What would the decision be if they didn't get the vote forgiveness?
at this point in time, I'm not gonna make that decision. I can't. Can you make a decision without all the facts?
I could have
You can have an opinion, but is it really, again, it's in the best interest of this entire community. As we've tried to maintain all of our board decisions, these are things that we need to evaluate, and we're gonna take them and make them hard decisions, good or bad sometimes. A lot of people don't agree, but they're hard decisions that have to be made. Think of the restraints that we've made on funding over the last 4 years. We had reserves of next to nothing because of the prior administration. Now we're looking at upwards of $4 million, and some of that money will be applied toward this. So we are looking out for your best interest. Please come up.
Hey, Jack, I just want to say that being a board member, just generally, being a board member is a thankless job, and I want to thank all of you for, I know that, I've been there. It's a thankless job, and I would just ask you to be appreciative of the fact that you do have 700 plus other people who aren't as well informed, who have concerns, aren't always feeling like they're being addressed. And that's why we're asking some of these questions. And so it might be repetitive, and I apologize for it to be repetitive, but it's a matter of trying to get that understanding. And I guess my question about the schedule was just, too loud now? I guess that's how it goes. I mean, I could make an argument to this gentleman's question that if we had done a rigorous analysis of options 1 and 2, it would be very easy to say, if we don't do option 3, we would fall back to option X for this reason. We haven't done a rigorous analysis of 1 and 2, so that's why some of us are asking, if we don't get the principal forgiveness, you're now talking about $13.3 million on the community. Is there going to be, hopefully you can answer this, is there going to be a community input step for what the alternative option is? Or is that just something the board will take and report to the community?
All of the decisions that would impact this kind of a decision for the board will be discussed in an open forum. We welcome your input, and I know you hear that. I mean, I know we've said that a lot of times, but we have very little input back to the board as far as some of these things, other than, no, I'm not gonna go there. There's some input that we need, and not just the negative input, we'd like to see the positive input as well. If you've got ideas that we can move forward on, we'd like to hear them. And we will not make a decision at any point in time until we have to. We're not gonna make a decision now that, hey, if we don't get the 13 million, the principal forgiveness, we're done. No, I won't make that decision at this point. Let's see where we are in this process. Let's just go after this grant and see what you can get. On a personal level, wouldn't you do the same?
I just have a question, Jack, you could probably answer this. When say we don't get any principal forgiveness, that's the zero amount grants. If you sign a loan for $13 million, are we putting Jamaica Bay up as collateral?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And so if you default on the loan, the bank owns Jamaica Bay.
Well, yeah.
So yet the shareholders have no vote in getting this loan. It's totally up to the board.
You make that sound as if it's a decision that we make easily.
No, I'm not saying it's easy. I understand it's a difficult decision.
We're not.
But there's no cap on the amount of spending that you can do. That's what I'm asking. Is it because we're now a not-for-profit that, or it's because they changed the prospectus about that?
We can get into that discussion later. I know that's been a topic lately. The board made a decision to change the prospectus back in 2020 to remove that. And it was done for reasons I wasn't even on the board at the time, but from the way I understand it, it was done because of previous administration efforts. That was, and I can pull up the minutes for that meeting, the vote, or the motion to approve that deletion of that clause. The motion was made, I believe, by Diane Dion, and seconded by Sal Viana, and it was unanimous at the board at that
So
time.
we took away the $50,000 cap, and now you're authorized to sign a loan for 13 million. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Okay, so that money was for our capital account. So we had many accounts previously. I just want to let you know, first of all, right now we have 2 accounts. We have an operating account that our budget money every month goes into our operating account. Every month, approximately 50,000 of that money goes into our reserve, which is our only second account. Previously, there was a kitchen account. We no longer have that because the kitchen isn't being run on a continuous basis. The other account we had was a capital account. I never understood why we had a capital account. It was money that was never spent. Dick Armenti had decided every home that was sold in here used to be 23.5. That 23.5 would go directly into the capital account. The capital account sat there. It went over the 250, almost close to 500. When Dick Armenti left, he requested all of that money back, money that belonged to Jamaica Bay. He was given half of that money. What we did, and we did it at a meeting and it's in the minutes, we took the money from that capital account that had no purpose and could be spent. Right now, the operating account is the money that the board of directors spends on a daily basis to keep the community running. The maintenance reserve account, every month we need to come to the community or whenever we meet and tell you what is spent from that account. The only money that can be used to improve this community, the water breaks are in there. If something new is added, pickleball would come from there. It's maintenance reserve. It is not our operating. So therefore, no one will ever be able to spend. The 50,000 was for the capital account. There is no capital account. No one can ever take that money again. We do not have money sitting somewhere that anyone can spend. So the whole thing was, the account is gone, so we do not need something that says 50,000. It was for that capital account. The other 2 are run as an operating account and a maintenance reserve account. And that must be voted on at a board meeting and approved at a board meeting, all of those that come from our maintenance reserve. Any questions on that? This 50,000 has nothing to do with our operating or our maintenance reserve accounts. It's specifically for a capital account that we no longer have. All set?
Okay, before you egg my house, I just want to explain to you that, yes, I read that motion to remove that restriction. I read something that was written that all the board members agreed on, and it was typed up and handed to me, and I was asked to read it because I read well. But we all agreed. I read the motion, I'm guilty of that, but I am not guilty of anything that the whole board agreed to, and it was not a sin. Donna Lee just explained it to you. So please, don't egg my house, don't hate me, don't walk around behind me with nasty comments for something that I did 4 years ago. Thank you.
We can't afford the eggs to egg your house.
That was not my intent to single people out. I had the minutes, and I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a decision made lightly.
Right, I
It was a
understand.
unanimous, I'm sorry.
Exactly, no, but I know how this goes, so that's why I say that.
Yeah,
Don't know how this goes? Who eggs houses? Who? We're not children here.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I do.
Thanks, Daniel. I'm Larry Cohen.
I know,
I'm
but-
gonna go back. Everybody, please, for a minute. I'll have you refer to page 21. Those of you who have the document. I'd like you also to refer over table 5.1. Really what the crux of it is, on August 13th, $970,000 is going to be obligated by our friends at the Florida Department of Environmental Protection Agency. I just have to ask Daniel, you're doing a good job. The PF, the principal forgiveness, is that percentage determined on August 13th? Excellent. If we get 0, the board has a path to take. If we get up to 50%, we have a path to take. Is it also true that in August of 2026, if we move forward, and this is for the $12,363,800, that at that hearing, there's the obligation of funding, and once again, there is the principal forgiveness inclusion, bothly. The third point, the northeast quadrant, where we're going to spend $600,000, and is not part of either of these loans, design or construction, that is going to be borne by us as owners. That'd be about $822 per unit.
Your maintenance reserve fund to cover this.
Okay, excellent. That takes that off the
Say that
table.
again, can't say
The reserve, she said, Donnelly said, the reserve fund will cover that. There will be no special assessment of 822. That's due applause. I think where we are, everybody's brought up very good points. I think health, quality of life, safety, winners for all of you. Age, unfortunately, winners for all of you, myself included. Unfortunately, I'd like to see the median income be down around 20,000, the lower the better, as opposed to the 40,000. But that's good too. Now the last point, Daniel, in your experience, if you've been in an environment like this, would you expect to see a 50% principal forgiveness on design and possibly a 50% forgiveness, principal forgiveness on construction? Thank you.
As far as what I would expect to see is, I really can't answer that question because it is a competitive process. I've been in projects where they don't get the funding at all, no zero, not even the loan amount, because they only have so much funding every public meeting. And so if they get a lot of projects that have higher ranking, you're competing against projects for municipalities that maybe have something wrong with their water quality, or some other public health hazard that gives them a ranking that is much higher than your ranking. I mean, the ranking of replacing water lines is not the highest. It's actually among the lowest. If you look at the ranking system and the reforms, it's quite low. So, you have all those projects that are going to be in front of you, and only when those are exhausted do they actually have any remaining loan and principal forgiveness dollars available to fund those projects. So I really don't know. It depends on the number of applications they get. It depends on the amount of funding they are allocated. There's state sources, there's federal sources that supplement and all that. It changes every time. I can't predict that. So the only real way to have an answer is to apply.
Fran Ordakis on Lake Galena Bay. I forgot where I lived for a minute there. I think one point that has been missed in all of this discussion is that the estimates that have come in are to go to a granting agency. And the better you always ask for more than you think you're gonna need, because they never give you the full amount. So everybody be aware that this budget that we have, what we're looking at right now, is for the purpose of putting in a grant. And you want your budget to be as high as possible so that when they come back to you and say, no, we're not gonna give you that amount, we're gonna give you this amount, it ups our opportunity to get more money. So August is, I believe that's when you can submit, correct? What's the granting? What's the granting cycle? August you submit, correct? And how long does it take for them to come back with a decision usually? Yeah.
So we'll submit this as soon as the board adopts it, so they can review it and.
Little louder, please.
Yeah, so we'll submit this as soon as the board adopts it and has a resolution, so that will be at the end of May, so they can review it. In August, it's just a public hearing up in Tallahassee where they allocate funding, so that day, you will know if you get funded or not, and what level of principal forgiveness.
Okay, so let's say we get lucky in August and they say, yeah, your grant is okay, we're gonna give you this much. When can we expect the funds to be released to our organization?
So what will happen is, the next step after August is to develop the loan agreement, okay? You have to submit a loan application, if you wanna call it that. The form is called loan application, you didn't apply previously, but they will, develop an agreement. You sign the agreement, that's another thing the board has to, adopt the agreement. And then you essentially hire a contractor and, well, your engineer first, and you essentially incur costs to the project, and you pay for those costs. And once the check clears, if you will, then you submit for a reimbursement. And then the SRF will reimburse you for what you paid for that particular month. You do that for all the months. So essentially, by reimbursement, the SRF is paying for the project. At the end of the project, only then do they say, okay, these are the total funds expended, and this is the amount of the principal, this much will be forgiven, whatever percentage it is, and then you start making payments 6 months after that for the next 10, 20 years, right? So it's not, there isn't a release of funds there.
Okay. Well, having been a part of a nonprofit board for many, many years and understanding grant cycles, I hope this clarifies it for you, that what it is we're discussing today and what we hope to do for the next steps. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I just have one financial clarification for the loan payment then, which would trigger the assessment, doesn't start till around 2029 or 2030, correct? When the project is complete.
Well, the assessment for the design loan would come after that design is complete, right? So that would be, probably at the end of 2026, early 2027. Then you go to the construction cycle, so that construction, which is a bigger amount, would not come due until maybe 2030 or so, as far as making repayments.
Right, so I apologize for transitioning from a financial question to a different question that concerned me, a statement in the report, has to do with fire hydrants. The statement says the existing hydrants are installed on 2, 3, and 4-inch mains, which are inadequate for providing the necessary flow and pressure for firefighting purposes. Inadequate. Due to the age of the system and the insufficient piping size, the effectiveness of these hydrants is significantly limited. Does that mean we're at risk that in the event of a fire, we cannot effectively fight it in our current situation? Is that what that's saying?
That's what that's saying. Some of it, from what we've seen in old drawings, some of those hydrants are tied to very small pipes, so you're not gonna get the flow that you need. There's also a question as to whether some of those hydrants are tied to the irrigation system. I don't know if they provide flow. So all these are issues that are not gonna be solved unless you do the project.
I wanted to bring that up because as people are weighing whether there's really value to this project, it's important to understand something like that. And I guess I would just say that if it's going to be 2029 or 2030 before we have effective hydrants to fight fires, that ought to be something that we consider how to remediate that in the short term, because no one wants to lose their home to a fire because the fire hydrant isn't sufficient to fight the fire. Just talk to anybody who lives in Los Angeles, how they feel about that.
I mean, the way to solve that is to either install new fire hydrants, tie them into the bigger diameter pipes that you have out there. You really basically doing that, throughout the whole community, replacing all the hydrants, and making sure they work right.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I appreciate that, but to me, that was probably the most concerning paragraph in the whole report, because it highlights the fact that we cannot, if this is true, we cannot effectively fight fires today. And so that needs to be something everybody's aware of as you think about how you consider the value of this project.
Apparently, one of our advantages is the issue of contamination with the irrigation system in the drinking water. It seems to me that they're two separate issues. In other words, if we decide to not spend the 13 million and repair, the contamination problem is still going to be there. It seems like contamination needs to be a higher priority right now. We need to find out if we do have contamination, and if we do, to remedy that immediately, not in years to come.
Yes, I fully agree with that. I mean, this issue with the interconnection between the irrigation system and the potable water system is definitely a problem and needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Problem is, from what I hear, is no one knows where that interconnection is. Somebody connected one system to the other. And so, you know, yes, that should be addressed as soon as possible, even before this whole project gets started. There's no guarantee that when you find the interconnection that there aren't others, nobody knows that. Fortunately, if you do this project, if you replace all the water mains, then you essentially eliminate that problem, because you reconnect all the homes' drinking supply to a drinking water system. So yeah, that's a big problem that should be addressed before the project.
You connect all the homes to the new water system. I know Colonial had problems with the trailers causing leaks. Who pays for all that where you hook me on through my trailer? Is that my responsibility?
So the question is, when you connect the homes to the new water system, if any leaks develop inside of their private home, essentially, who pays for that? That's a question maybe for the board. I don't know how you want to handle it. What I've seen in other communities is that they replace the service connection, they open the new connection slowly, not to create any water hammer issues, and that's it. If there's leaks inside the home, what I've seen is that that's up to each individual owner, to repair those.
You're gonna have higher pressure, right?
Higher pressure, not necessarily, because the pressure from the city will be the same. Yeah, so you'll have bigger pipes, which will deliver more water in case of a fire hydrant is open or anything like that. But the actual pressure of the system in itself is not going to increase because of the project.
Just as a follow-up to both your question, Hank, and yours, when we had the potential for a cross connection, we had the city out here to do a pressure study on it, and theirs was very consistently between 50 and 55 pounds per square inch. Did not vary.
Sir, is there any intention of putting individual meters on each unit? I see it's not part of this.
The question is if there's intention to put individual water meters for each unit, and at this point,
Absolutely
no.
not. Absolutely not.
That's what the board has decided.
I think that was covered in your report here. Why are we doing this? And to me, reading this report, we have a drinking water problem that was just brought up. Another gentleman brought up in here, fire hydrants. God forbid we have a fire here, we could be in serious trouble. These things have to be done as soon as possible. Now, if we do them before the grant money comes in, that will have to be subtracted from this estimate in here
you pointed out how much a fire hydrant costs times how many fire hydrants we need. So that figure, I forget what it was, $600,000, something like that, would come off of the estimate that we're trying to get the grant. So if we do these, spend money on the contamination, which we have to do, which this whole new water system will take care of, fire hydrants, which we should do as soon as possible. But again, if we do it now, that comes out of the possibility of our grant money. So this is, to me, I don't want to spend $1 more on a monthly assessment, on a monthly bill. I don't want anybody to pay that. But unfortunately, we're paying it little by little with the breakage, because that comes out of our reserve funds. We have a problem, not a problem. We have, like Donna brought up about the road. That have to be addressed. This all has to be done sooner or later. Sure, we can drink a lot of water for the rest of our lives. Even when we get this new system, and I'm sure people are gonna be drinking bottled water anyway, but for the people who are worried about their health, because of the pipes that we have now, I'm not very confident in drinking all the water out of the tap, although I do. I drink at home too. Most of my kids have filter systems and so forth and so on. But to get back to it, we need a lot of things to be done, and this project will take care of it. The estimate as high as possible will help us to make our bills as low as possible. And maybe we won't have extra bills. You don't know. We won't know until we apply for the loan and see what we get. And then the board has a decision. We voted them all in. They're doing a good job. They'll make that decision. And I always remember the board not only does things for the community, they are the community. They each have a house just like we do. If I'm on the board, am I gonna vote for something that's gonna cost you more money and you more money? It's gonna cost me more money. So the board, to me, is in there to do the best job possible for the whole community. So, and I thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you everyone for having me.
Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate it. We're going to end the Zoom session now and send that recording out to the folks that were here. I thank you for your attendance.